Shabbat Shalom. This Shabbat, we're deeply inside the holiday of Pesach, Passover. Clearly, this year is indeed different. When the question was asked at the Seder, whether we had a in-person Seder or a virtual Seder, or just thought of a Seder, when the question was asked, why is this night different from all other nights? We didn't have to dig into our ancient past because the response was very current. In fact, a little bit painful. This Passover, probably different from any, maybe ever, in our lifetime. We are, as we have seen mentioned so many times, experiencing an 11th plague as we speak. So that's why I would like to focus on an aspect this Pesach that is part of our tradition, very much so, has always been, but is a little less widespread, certainly a little less widespread among in the Reform movement, a little bit less regularly practiced. And I'm referring particularly to the reading of the beautiful biblical book called Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs. You know, different holidays do have certain books of the Bible read in them. For example, on Tisha B'Av, we read the book of Echa, the book of Lamentation. On Shavuot, we read the book of Ruth. On Yom Kippur, we read the book of Jonah. And yes, on Pesach, on Passover, we read the gorgeous poetry of Shir HaShirim, of the Song of Songs. And this year, I feel that it really takes a special importance as a reminder, as a healer, an undying expression of hope. And we need that now. So the Song of Songs, in case you're not fully aware of what that book is about, it is a great love story. I might add, it's explicit, it's even erotic in certain places. And that, by the way, is why it had to be reinterpreted a number of times in ancient years in order to find its way into the Bible. Rabbi Akiva, one of our very great ancient scholars, began a very long tradition throughout our history who said that it wasn't really a love story between a man and a woman, but it was the love story between God and the people of Israel. And all the expressions of passion that are expressed in the book are the expression of love between God and his people and that eternal connection. And so Pesach, in its own way, is the beginning of that love story. Because it is Pesach that forges the connection between Israel and God. Remember, first, God showed up in the stories individually of the patriarch, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Then they moved to Egypt because there was this famine. And next thing we know, they multiplied and were made into slaves. And so they weren't really a people and suffered for hundreds of years. And so that which happened on Pesach, the story we're so familiar with, is when that connection was first made. So soon after crossing the Reed's Sea, which is where our story of Pesach actually begins. Well, really it begins before, right, as they prepare. But once they crossed the Reed Sea, they came to Mount Sinai, and lots of great midrash stories, wonderful midrashim, ensue about that incredible journey. And many of those midrashim say that Mount Sinai is seen as a chuppah, of this loving union. And if you recall, they received the Torah there. And those midrashim say that the Torah was like the ketubah. So the union between God and the people of Israel is described as a union of ongoing eternal love. And so the idea of Pesach being a story of love makes sense. And therefore, of course, the inclusion of the book of Shir HaShirim, Song of Songs, in our tradition is totally justified. In fact, we can view it and understand it as being very beautiful indeed, especially because the entire book is set in breathtakingly beautiful spring scenarios, tableaus of gorgeous nature in which the glories of springtime are described in the most ravishing poetic language imaginable. So let's also remember, of course, that Pesach is a holiday of liberation. By the way, sidebar, Pesach has a number of names. It's holiday of Pesach, holiday of matzah, of matzot, holiday of spring, Aviv, and holiday of liberation. So focusing for a moment on the fact that it is the grand holiday of grand liberation, let's remember this. As slaves, we were subjected to cruel routines. The main goal as a slave, when you are in the slave routine, is to somehow do the task well enough to survive the day, to survive to see tomorrow. Not much room really for thinking of beauty and loveliness of nature, of anything, or the spontaneity to allow you to feel these kinds of feelings, or to devote much thinking to welfare of other people. You have to be self-centered to just do what you're told and make it to tomorrow. So liberation has many aspects of wonderfulness to it because it liberated us to those things. It liberated us to love what we see, to love what we hear, allowed us to spontaneously bathe in all those forms of beauty, of feeling and touching and sensing, and to have the freedom to care for our fellow human being, meaning to love our neighbor as ourselves. In a way, therefore, liberation liberated us to more actively engage in chesed, in deeds of loving kindness, which is probably one of the most potent kinds of love we know. So all of these are, in fact, the things that make life worth living. Yes, we've been given the freedom to live, whereas in the past, no freedom, we were just existing. Now we were given the opportunity to live a worthwhile life, no longer just routine, enslaved in all ways, not just external, but also inner enslavements. And that, by the way, is something we can probably relate to anytime, any generation, anywhere, including now. The Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim, speaks of a time of renewal. It is in spring, the annual time of renewal, and we're experiencing it right now, not quite as vividly as maybe other years, but it is there, and we are invited by Pesach, by Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, to really live. And mind you, this really live thing, I think we have it in our DNA. Again, going back to the story that we are celebrating right now in Pesach, think of it. The Israelites, our ancestors, they crossed the Red Sea in an absolutely mind-boggling circumstance, with their enemies hot on their heels behind them, barely missing them. In front of them, as they got to the other side, nothing but desert. Frightening uncertainty all around, because they really don't know what's ahead of them. It is hot. It is sweltering. What did they do, our forefathers, our brethren? They sang. They danced. They lived. They were alive and grateful for the gift. And today, we find ourselves in a circumstance not entirely dissimilar to the one experienced by our forefathers. We're in the midst of a kind of imprisonment, certainly limited movement. We are most assuredly ill at ease, feeling stressed, in fact, maybe a little frightened of the uncertainty of the future, what exactly may be looming ahead as far as this virus is concerned. We are in a current, maybe milder form of Egypt of our very own. So this year, the mitzvah which we are reminded of each year we must do, and that is to view ourselves as if we ourselves personally experienced the Passover ordeal. As I said before, no longer just a page in the Haggadah or page in history, a page in the Torah. We are in it. As we said earlier, that is different because we are living it. But here, my friends, in the word living lies the punchline, really the centerpiece of the holiday of Passover. And this punchline reminded by the really beautiful poetic words of the Song of Songs. God liberated us then and is liberating us today to live, to love. Yes, to love even in moments of uncertainty, to have the courage to speak words of love, to sing words of love. And by the way, so much of the text of the book, The Song of Songs, have been set to music and is part of our services, and we sing it at weddings. And to recognize that even now, during times of narrowness and worry, we can and we must expand our soul to every possible form of love. So actually, I invite everyone, all of you, to reach for the copy of the Bible you may have at home, or go online, find the book, The Song of Songs. It is not a long book. It has under 10 chapters, possibly maybe 8, I'm not sure, but really few, short book. And I promise that even those among you who are not generally interested in the gorgeous poetic writings of love, you will be blown away by some of it. Its beauty, its passion. So I thought I'd send you off this Shabbat of Pesach with a brief, beautiful invitation to love and to springtime from the Song of Songs, just one of the quotes that concentrates on a scenario, on a tableau of beauty. The blossoms have appeared in the land. The time of pruning has come. The song of the turtle dove is heard in our land. The green figs form on the fig tree, and the vines blossom, and they give a fragrance. Arise, my love, my fair one. Come away. Shabbat Shalom.